Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Today we're heading over to Nigeria.
All right.
Specifically, we're going to the northern part of the country where some pretty interesting political developments seem to be happening.
Sounds fascinating.
It is. And to really get into it, we're going to be looking at this speech by Senator Ibrahim Shekarau.
Okay.
Now, he's the chairman of the League of Northern Democrats, the LND.
Okay.
And he gave this speech to the Ariwa Consultative Forum.
The ACF.
Right. And they're a pretty influential group up in the north.
Yeah, they're a major player for sure.
For sure. And just to give you a taste of what he had to say.
Okay.
I mean, he was talking about reclaiming the North's dignity and humbling political entities and repositioning the North as like a decisive player in Nigerian politics.
Wow, strong words.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we're diving into this speech today.
Makes sense, yeah. I'm curious to hear more.
So to get us started, I mean, the senator, he really paints this stark picture of the situation in northern Nigeria. Like he's talking about poverty, insecurity, and illiteracy.
Right, which sadly are challenges that a lot of Nigerians face.
Unfortunately, yeah. And he doesn't just stop there. He also talks about how he thinks the North's political influence has gone down.
Decreased.
Yeah, decreased in recent years.
And that makes it harder to deal with these problems.
Exactly. And I think for those who might not be super familiar with Nigerian politics,
Okay.
it might help to kind of lay out some of the key players.
Sure.
So you've got these big political parties, the PDP and the APC.
Right.
They're kind of like
the Democrats and Republicans in the U.S.
Yeah. But of course, they have their own unique history and dynamics.
For sure.
And then on top of that, we've got groups like the ACF, who we just talked about.
Right.
And then the Northern Elders Forum, the NEF,
Uh-huh.
and the Middle Belt Forum, and all these different groups represent different interests.
And constituencies.
Exactly, all within this northern region.
It's a complex landscape.
It really is. And what's really interesting is that Senator Shekarau, he doesn't really see the answer to these problems in these existing political structures.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's actually pointing to a new force. He's calling it the League of Northern Democrats, or LND.
Okay, the LND.
Right, and he talks about them as bringing these fresh perspectives.
And innovative strategies.
Exactly.
I mean, that sounds promising, but what does that actually look like in practice?
I know, right?
What are these fresh perspectives?
So that's like the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to be honest, he doesn't really go into specific policy details in this speech. But based on his broader message,
Okay.
it seems like the LND wants to move away from what they see as the problems with the current system. Like corruption, stagnation.
And just a lack of focus on the specific challenges the North faces.
Exactly. And they talk about things like empowering local communities, investing in education and infrastructure.
And making sure resources are distributed more fairly.
Right. So it's like they're focusing on
Grassroots solutions.
Yeah. And rebalancing the power a little bit.
Exactly. It's like they want to shift the focus from the top down to the bottom up.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference from the way the established parties usually do things.
Definitely. And so we've got the LND, which
Yeah.
is interesting on its own.
Right.
But then Shekarau, he drops this bombshell.
What's that?
He announces that they're forming this coalition with the ACF, the NEF, and the Middle Belt Forum.
Wow. Okay, that's big.
It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, these are major players in northern Nigerian politics.
Absolutely.
And for them to all come together like this,
Yeah.
that could seriously change things.
And Shekarau, he's not exactly shy about how ambitious this coalition is.
Oh, really?
He actually claims that it will be so powerful
Powerful. How?
that will humble major political parties, state governors,
Yeah.
even the presidency.
Wow. He's not holding back.
No, he's not. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a little early to say how this is all going to play out.
Yeah.
But just that claim shows how frustrated they are with the current establishment.
It does.
They feel ignored. Like their concerns aren't being taken seriously.
And they think this coalition is the only way to make those in power listen.
Exactly. So then the question becomes, okay, what are the actual benefits that Shekarau sees coming from this coalition?
Right. Good question.
Well, he argues that by uniting the North can basically speak with a louder voice at the national level.
Okay. Makes sense.
They can pool their resources to deal with all those challenges we were talking about.
Poverty and insecurity.
Exactly. And he even thinks that this will strengthen the social fabric of the region.
Interesting.
And ultimately, he thinks that this will let the North regain its political clout. and really shape the future of Nigeria.
In a way that represents their interests.
Exactly.
It's a bold vision.
It really is.
But it's interesting, though, right? Because he's not just talking about, like, practical stuff.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, just getting more resources or having more political power.
Yeah.
He's talking about something deeper.
Deeper. All that.
Like a sense of identity, like the North wanting to be unified and wanting to reclaim its place in Nigeria.
It's almost like he's trying to create this new story for the North.
Yeah.
Like a story where they can overcome these challenges, find their strength again.
And actually be a major force in shaping Nigeria's future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of narrative can be super powerful.
Oh, yeah. Especially when people feel like they're being ignored or left behind.
It gives them something to believe in.
Right. Something to rally around.
And I think we also need to consider the historical context here.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the North has always been a major player in Nigerian politics. That's the most populous region.
Right.
It has this rich cultural heritage and a strong sense of its own identity.
So when Shekarau talks about reclaiming the North's dignity,
yeah,
that resonates with a lot of people.
On a deep level.
It really does.
And it's almost like he's saying that the North has this responsibility.
What kind of responsibility?
Like a historical duty to step up, assert its influence, and make sure its voice is heard.
That's a powerful idea.
It is. So we've got this powerful narrative, this ambitious coalition, and these big goals.
Right.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
Are there any potential problems here?
Oh, there are definitely challenges.
Like what?
Well, first off, can these different groups actually work together?
Yeah. I mean, they all have their own history and agendas.
Exactly. And I think we've seen so many times how things like personal ambition or old rivalries or even just disagreements
Can break apart alliances.
even when everyone starts off with good intentions.
And on top of that, you have to think about how the people in power are going to react.
Right, because Shekarau was talking about humbling existing political structures.
And those people aren't just going to give up their power.
No, they're not.
So we could see them try to undermine the coalition.
Or even try to get some of its members to switch sides.
It's starting to sound like a political thriller.
It kind of is, right? You've got this new force that wants change.
Going up against these powerful people who want to keep things the way they are.
A classic power struggle.
With really high stakes.
Because whoever wins this fight is going to have a huge impact.
Not just on the North, but on the entire country.
Yeah, the future of Nigeria could depend on this.
So for those of us who are watching this all unfold,
what should we be paying attention to?
Yeah, what are some signs that will tell us whether this coalition is actually working?
Well, the first thing is to watch what's happening inside the coalition.
Like, are they staying united?
Right. Are there cracks starting to show?
Are they all saying the same thing?
Or are the leaders starting to do their own thing?
And what else should we be looking for?
We need to see if they can actually get people to support them.
Like popular support.
Exactly. Can they turn their words into actions?
Can they actually make things better for the people they're supposed to be representing?
Because in the end, their success depends on whether they can connect with everyday Nigerians.
And convince them that this coalition is really fighting for them.
That's the key.
This feels like it's more than just politics. You know?
It does, yeah.
Like we're talking about identity and representation and what a whole region wants for its future.
Yeah, it really is, and that's what makes it so interesting to watch.
Totally. I mean, we're not just watching politicians play games.
Right.
It's like we're seeing maybe a fundamental change happening in Nigeria.
Yeah, maybe even a shift in the balance of power.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about this coalition so far?
Yeah. What are your first impressions?
Do you think they can actually achieve what they're setting out to do?
And what about the potential consequences if they succeed?
Yeah. How do you think this would change Nigerian politics?
Could it lead to a more cooperative and progressive future for the country?
Or will it just create a whole new set of problems?
These are questions that only time will answer.
I know, but one thing's for sure.
What's that?
We'll be keeping a close eye on what's happening in northern Nigeria.
Because this could be a turning point in the country's history.
It really could. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive,